Welcome tonight. My name is Heather Minaldo. I'm just going to go through some housekeeping things as we get started here as we go through this workshop together. So tonight we're recording this workshop, so it'll be available to our families on KidsAbility's website, just for further information and resources moving forward. So if it's okay with you guys, we'd ask that you keep your microphones muted and your cameras off. To allow us to be able to share all the information we're going to share tonight, as well as hear our presenters and see our presenters appropriately through the course of this time together. So as we move forward, if you have any questions related to this presentation, feel free to write those in the chat box. There should be a chat that you can access and write to everyone in that chat box. We'll try to answer those questions as we go through the workshop. And then if we don't get to them, we'll try to also have a bit of time for questions at the end, but most of the questions will be addressed, hopefully, by the end of this presentation. I'm just getting a question right now in terms of handouts. We're going to hopefully have handouts that will be posted with this website, with this webinar, when we get it posted up onto the KidsAbility website. And so we will show you some of the handouts today, we'll post those as soon as possible on the KidsAbility website as well. Okay, so I think that's it for just housekeeping rules. And we're going to get started. So the purpose of this webinar today and workshop today is getting started the therapy journey throughout your school years. And so really the purpose of this workshop is to assist our families in beginning and navigating through their school years journey with KidsAbility school services as well as beyond. And our hope is that this information will support you through the journey with further information, maybe identify things you would like to focus on for your kiddo and things you may want to get more information about. And so to start, we're going to just introduce ourselves. Well, I'll introduce for everybody. But my name is Heather Minaldo. I'm a social worker at the Waterloo site, currently in the early years program. I'm also the clinical advisor for the social work discipline at KidsAbility. And I've had the pleasure to actually work at most of our sites at KidsAbility in multiple programs, including the intake, early years and school year services. So I've really enjoyed getting to know all our families in that way. We also have Cheryl Dedman here. She's a recreation therapist at Cambridge site, and she currently supports the school years and early years program. And our last presenter today is Maria Hamilton, and she's an occupational therapist at the Waterloo site in the school years program, including KidsAbility School. So thank you guys for being here, and thank you all for joining us this evening. So we're actually gonna start this time together to kind of take a moment to breathe, myself included, to just reflect on what might have brought you here tonight. And it's such an important time to connect with how we're feeling and what we might need as we prepare for this journey for our children and in the school year services as well as in the school system, and to really give ourselves permission to take a moment and breathe and think about what we might need for that transition and as we navigate that. And for parents, this is often something that's really hard to do. And so it's so great that you're able to join us tonight for this information session. So currently, you're navigating school year services for your child. And so what I want you to think about is, what does this mean for you? Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, about how you're feeling about transitioning to or accessing services at KidsAbility, with 10 being I feel confident, I feel great about this change, I'm good, and 1 being the opposite. Where would you put yourself on that scale today, right now in this moment? How are you feeling about services at school, services in the community? And I want you to think about some of the words to describe your feelings that might come up as you kind of think about that. And if you have a pen near you, it might be helpful to even write down a word or your number, just to see how you feel in this moment. Then I want you to think about, what would it take to move you 1 point higher on any of those areas? So what would you like to see for sorry guys, what would you like to see for that number to go up, even 1 or 2, or stay where it is even? You don't have to put answers in the chat box. You can if you want to share with others. It's sometimes helpful to see people feeling the same thing. Okay, so I'm gonna let that kind of sit for the time being, and I'm gonna go over into kind of what we're gonna go over tonight. And so we're gonna talk about this journey through the school year's services and beyond. And so really we're gonna talk about school-based rehab services in schools, school health supports that are available, KidsAbility school years services, so that those that are available to you on site and in the community, for community supports, accessing services in general and some information sharing around that, private therapy considerations, advocacy for your child and your family as you move forward. And then we're going to give some really nice time to looking at different activity ideas that you can use with your child at home to help support their ongoing development and learning. So I'm going to, at this point, pass this over to Maria, and we're going to start talking about services in schools.
Okay. I just making sure I'm unmuted and you can hear me. Okay. All right. So as an occupational therapist, I'm here to kind of share that therapy lens for you, and to share that what therapy services are going to look like as you move forward in school. So I'm here to share a little bit about that, say that it does look different than what you may have been used to so far, but the services continue to be available. Really, it's nice to look at it in that our team is growing, right? There's more people now part of that therapy team, and we can really look at that to support our children as we move forward. For SLP services, they are provided directly by the school boards in both the Waterloo region and the Guelph Wellington region. The services in the school do look different than what they have looked in the past. They're primarily consultative in nature, which means the therapist may go in, it might involve observations of your child, contact with teachers and parents. They're going to work together to determine the most appropriate strategies and programs for your children. The best bet to do at the beginning of the year is to connect with your classroom teacher to figure out what that plan for speech services might look like in a school. Really, it's a nice time to look at school. It's going to look different, but we want to think about how the school provides natural opportunities to practice the skills that we have learned. So this is our next step in our therapy journey. We've practiced a lot of intense skills when we're doing direct one-on-one therapy. Now our children are going into the classroom and using those skills in a natural setting. And the jobs of the therapist is to help support the classroom team in making that happen. As I mentioned, if you in September, it's good to connect with your classroom teacher to set that up. If you have any recent assessments or reports that might be of use to the school, it's a good idea to also bring that in to the school and share that with them at that time. Okay. So the next slide would be OT and PT services in the school. So in the same way that speech therapy is offered, OT and PT services are provided in the school on a consultative basis. PT services at this point are being provided by KidsAbility. OT services are provided by a different agency called the CBI. As I said, the services are consultative in nature. They're directly related to function in the classroom. So as an occupational therapist or physiotherapist, they're going to, again, work closely with the classroom team. They're going to do some assessments. They might look at equipment. They're going to provide education to the classroom team. anything that is needed to be done to help promote access to this school curriculum. That is the job there. So again, if you want to look at setting this up, it's helpful to connect with your classroom teacher at the beginning of each year to address any concerns you have and create a plan for that support. If the referral hasn't been done yet, again, you can connect with the school and they are the ones that can help initiate that referral. Okay. So at this point, we also recognize that some people have chosen not to send their children to a public school system. Some people are homeschooling or have chosen to go the route of private school. It's important to know that these school health support services do continue to be available to you. So the way you would access this is actually by a slightly different route. So we thought we would share that link with you here. So this is a link that you can go to. It will directly connect you to the local health integration network and share a little bit of information about how that is. Through the LIN, they would be able to provide speech therapy, occupational therapy, physiotherapy for children who are at private schools or at home schools. The LIN is also the agency that helps support children who have nursing needs or any kind of medical or dietary needs at the school system as well, in the public school system. Okay. And then as we continue, we're going to talk about what KidsAbility School Year Service looks like, I guess, at KidsAbility. Sure.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me. I am Cheryl. I'm the recreation therapist. So I'm going to talk a little bit about KidsAbility School Year Services. I know Maria talked about the KidsAbility also does the the PT for the schools, but we also have our school year services. And we provide resources, workshop services, community participation for youth up to age 21 or high school exit. So that is the age group that we're working with children with a variety of special needs. We realize that changes like starting school, changing schools, becoming a teenager, preparing for adulthood can be difficult or can be transition times. And we at KidsAbility want to work with you to connect your family to the right resources and services so that your child can be successful at home, at school, and in the community. I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay, and we are not the only ones obviously involved with your child, and so we really believe that it takes a village to help shape your child's future, and we as KidsAbility are part of that village with you. And so our services in the school years are focused on helping your child to learn the functional skills to do the things that they enjoy. We also recognize that family is incredibly important, and we want to provide family supports for siblings, parents, extended family. We are looking at participation in community support options that will help your child with important things like making friends, staying healthy, and planning for their future. Along with this village view, we talk about the 6 F's, and I'm actually gonna share this document. It is up on our website. So we call it the 6 F's of words with childhood disability. And so this is what our village is kind of looking at. So when we talk about the number 1, function, so depending on your child's age, we really looked at they have 2 main roles, and that is play or school. And you can actually have to go back to this one is probably better. Yeah. And so we want to look at how they're functioning in that. 2, we want to look at family. You are essential for your child. You are the advocates. We want to support you in that role. You know what's best for your child, and so we want to be there to support you. We recognize fitness is important, including strength, flexibility, cardiovascular, to be able to participate in activities or things they enjoy. The level of fitness your child has is important. Obviously, friends are important. That's the number 4. So interacting with other children, We want to help if there's ways we can to support that. Fun, participating, helping or exposing your child to different activities or helping you get them in what you want them to do. And then looking at the future. What are your dreams? What are your hopes? Can we provide you with some supports or resources that will help in your journey for the future? So those are the 6 F's. And we can go to the next slide. So this slide is a bit busy. And again, this map is on our website. And it is kind of in a picture, a view of what our school year services look like. So if you look at the middle, this is our model. And if you look at the whole picture, the image is of a village, and that every family and every child is on their unique journey to adulthood. In the middle, we have placed yourself with your family, and then you'll see the 3 buildings, which are the supports. So you have your home life, you have your school, and you have your community. This model was based on 2 key components. One is the Bloor View Growing Up Ready framework, and this is on our website under our school year services. And the other key one is the one that we just talked about, which is the 6 F's. And you will see those F words are listed in this map. So where we're going to start actually is, and one other key point on this, and you'll see bigger trees, which is how KidsAbility is trying to support your journey. And then you'll see smaller trees, which are our community partners, and ways that linking those services in the community related to one of the F's. So I want you to start and look at the function component. And so some of the things that the school year services have in place for the function, we have some school years checkup clinics. We have a sensory clinic, a picky eater clinic. You can look at a block therapy session or coaching. There are some therapy groups, equipment loan, and different workshops that will help you along your journey in the functional area. Then we're going to move down on the map to the family. And so here we also have some support areas like funding clinic, counseling support, special siblings. We have the resource center. And then as we're moving along into our fitness and friends, is really the area that I, as a recreational therapist, kind of support you with. We have some therapeutic rec consults. We have our seasonal planning. We have our summer camp planning. We have a bike clinic, a swim clinic, our I Can Bike camps, and different kind of summer supports. And as we're looking into fun, really looking at supporting your participation in community recreation programs, but we work in partnership and have a few programs like Arts Express, Drum Club, the Firefly programs, family leisure with the swimming pool, and then looking at the future as our road takes us and preparing you for the future with our youth discovery series. We have a transition to adulthood clinic, our kayak, our young adults Facebook group, a camp lit, which is a transition to adulthood supports and going on. So as I said, the map is on our website, and that's kind of the model where our school year series are based on. I'm going to turn it over to Heather.
Thank you. So I'm just going to do another quick overview of some of the services that Cheryl was just mentioning. And so services you might access at KidsAbility once you go into kind of those school years are more specifically social work and occupational therapy, physio, and recreation therapy supports. Cheryl mentioned some of those clinics that are available. And so there's a transition to adulthood clinic, there's OT so occupational therapy and physiotherapy check-in clinics, which are really around some of those physical kind of functional activity of daily living kind of needs that you might have come up. The sensory clinic for sensory needs, mealtime skills and picky eating clinics, bike and swim clinics, funding clinic. Some of these I'll talk about a little bit later too. And then workshops and programs. So things like Find Your Passion, the Family Activity Day, and PD programs, summer camps, special CIVs, or the Super CIVs program in Wellington, in Guelph, and Usway, which is that Understanding the Sensory World Around You workshop. And so these are all services that potentially you could access in the school year services. And you can find more information about all of these things on our website, and actually why you may refer to some of those services. And you can have support from clinicians that you might be already attached to in early years, or just in general at KidsAbility, to kind of access any of those and get referred to those programs or services. Or you can always give us a call at intake to help get you connected and see if you're eligible and access those services accordingly. And so our website is really the next kind of resource you would look at for, sorry guys, the next resource you would look at for kind of all of the things that KidsAbility is currently accessing. And so anyone, families, community members, anyone can access our website at this point. And also a good place to look at and kind of follow us is on our social media. So we actually do have a Twitter account, an Instagram account, as well as a Facebook account. And so that is resources that are available to you at any time. It'll give you updates around events that we're holding, any activities or programs that are coming up, workshops, and also just all the other resources we have, including things at our resource center. But there's a lot of information. We've done a really nice revamp of our website, and it's a really good place to go and explore and just see what else you might be able to access. So I'm going to pass it over to Maria to be able to kind of talk about kind of the actual service steps and next steps that way.
Thanks, Heather. So this is really what the next steps are for services. So as I said, if you have anything that's really school-based specific need, that's a conversation you're going to have with the school. If we're talking about home-based needs or community-based needs, that's something that you can contact us here at KidsAbility. So if you haven't already, your name will be placed on, or your child's name will be placed on the school year's registry list. Many people will have already had that done. It's a conversation you can have with the clinician if you're working with at this point in time. And what that means is that's going to give you access to all the parent workshops, the therapy resources, recreation activity director, all those things that Heather just mentioned that we have available to you at KidsAbility. The other thing, and Heather already spoke to this, but I want to emphasize it again. If you have a need that arises, or you have any questions about what our services are or where might be the best place to go for those services, whether it's home or school or anywhere else, feel free to call our intake, and they're a good support for that to help direct you to make sure that your needs are met in the best way possible. Okay, the next slide. The other option you do have is that some people are also interested in accessing various private therapy services. So we wanted to share this information with you. It's different ways that you can connect with private therapy within the community. These are different links that show how you can go to a list of service providers in the region. We're also going to share a private practice therapy handout. That's one of the things that will be uploaded onto our website for you to refer to later. And I encourage you, if you're considering to pursue those private therapy services, that you do look at this. Within that handout, we outline a list of questions and considerations for you to think about when you're choosing service providers in the community, so that you can really make sure that you find the best fit for your child and your family. Thanks. Heather.
I'm just going to unmute myself. I'm going to talk a little bit about social work at KidsAbility once you kind of get into that school year's age and what that potentially looks like. So there's a number of ways you can access social work moving forward. And so if you are attached to a social worker during earlier services, hopefully they'll have given you some idea of what that might look like. If not, it will be coming in terms of conversations to determine kind of what you might need and what you can access. And so really, there's a number of different things that you can access with social work services at KidsAbility once you go into school year services. First and foremost, our intake program has really started to offer a little bit more support for families once you're at that school age. And so we do have some service navigation available through intake to kind of make sure that you have access to the supports and the resources and the connections to other services that you might need. And so that would be giving you support generally by phone to see what you're needing, what your concerns are, what might be a good fit for you in terms of our services and programs, and getting you where you know, your main concerns might be, and giving you the information you might require. And so, and if it's not us at KidsAbility, then connecting you elsewhere into the other community places that might give you the supports you need. Another thing that social work does is offer the funding clinic. And so funding clinic is there if you have any concerns about general resources or access to different types of funding, and getting that information so that you have support if you need it. A lot of that information for the funding resources is actually already up on the website. So it's not something you always have to come to the clinic for, but it is something that if you do feel like it's helpful to talk to somebody and have a little bit more support in accessing any specific types of funding, or just getting more information about the types of funding that you might be able to access, or resources, that's something that you can refer through intake to, is the funding clinic. Also, we also offer counseling and just further support to families when they need it in a more of an individual way, in ways that you might have been experiencing in earlier services. And so we help with more kind of complex needs around kind of funding and home and vehicle modifications, and supporting families who are needing just that extra support while navigating their child's journey. We also do counseling for our youth as they get older. So if there's identified needs for some of those kiddos that are a little bit more complex and are identifying that they would like to speak to somebody about their needs and some of the things that they might be experiencing as they grow up and develop, that's something we also provide, as well as that ongoing family and emotional support that we give to parents at the early years level. So the other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit today is just that school advocacy piece. And so thinking about how do we become advocates for our children, as well as help them to become advocates for themselves. And so I wanted to give a little bit of time to that today, to really look at kind of things to consider as you prepare in the next number of months. I know that that picture does look a little different currently, but a lot of these processes would still be in place as we continue to navigate the school environment. So really one thing to kind of think about, and I like to start with families, is really thinking about the information that we can gather about navigating this system. I'm really thinking about, you know, what my child might need. And so the Ministry of Education, as well as all the school boards, have a lot of information around special education programs, just education in general. And it's always nice to kind of look and see kind of where you can gather more information. And so I will have a handout that will be attached to this to this workshop once it's up on the website, that will give you some links to be able to click and go to your specific board or to the Ministry of Education to find some more information. The other next thing I would suggest is really identifying your supports in the system and really thinking about who are my allies. And when I talk to families about this, I really think about, you know, I might have a year where I really get along with the teacher, and I might have a year where, you know what, the teacher's not my favorite person. And so I might look to someone else in that system who might help me be able to navigate the conversations I need to have about my child a little bit more effectively. And so though that could be your teachers, that could be, there's lots of acronyms. So CERTS, which is your special education resource teacher, who's really involved in helping with any of those special education needs in that school environment specifically. It could be SBRS therapists, so school-based rehab therapists that come in, so the OT or the physio or the speech, or even a speech pathologist that's associated through the board specifically. It could be a child and youth worker, and it could be school administration, so your principal or your vice principal. And also there's people at the school board level who might be contacts, so special education consultants that are overseeing multiple schools who could also be an ally to you as you continue those conversations. Another key piece in terms of who are your allies are really just some of those community supports and resources that you can access. And so one of them specifically that I do want to highlight tonight is the Waterloo Region Family Network. And so they are an organization that was created for families by families and with kids across the spectrum of needs. And so they've, in the last couple of years, really taken a nice lens of supporting families in the Waterloo region to navigate those school concerns and issues. And so they have peer support groups, they have supports to even, you know, be with you to help have a conversation if it's needed, or consult with you to kind of talk through that situation and see what you might need, and just some really nice education and workshop opportunities to talk about school navigation. And so that's one other resource that's really great. There's other community supports that you might be able to access depending on if your child has a diagnosis or other special needs that would allow them to access other services. Family Compass is another website through the Waterloo region that's a really great one if you do have concerns or issues, and it can point you in a direction to where you might need to go. So there's like even a questionnaire on Family Compass that you can say, this is the concerns I have, and they'll tell you what is your best next step to kind of have a conversation and see what you might need. So that's another great resource that'll be on my handout attached to this workshop. I just got a question around Guelph, and so there's not actually a lot of Guelph supports. I did ask our Guelph social worker just to make sure I was correct on that information. I know that Waterloo Region Family Network will answer questions or support families if they can. They are more Waterloo Region specific, but I'm sure they would give you support to find what would be appropriate in Guelph Wellington if you needed it. So I'm going to take a moment just to look at a document here. It's called an All About Me. And the reason I'm going to look at this today is really because we want to think about how do we prepare for this transition for our kiddo, because I know a lot of families that are getting ready to get their kids to school, and we don't know quite what that picture is going to look like for us just yet, but I know that a lot of families and parents are thinking about how do we get the people who are going to get to know our kids, how do we get them to get the information we want them to know, right? And so an All About Me is one way to do that. And so this is actually a really great handout that was prepared by our recreation therapists to support families in really communicating needs for their kiddos. And so this is done in the lens of if you were accessing a recreation program. And so on my handout, I'll also have some links of where you might be able to look at one that's a little bit more education specific, just for comparison. But I like this handout because it really talks about how do we really look at our kiddo, and how do we communicate what they need to be successful in an environment and in a program and in an activity. And so this handout goes through it, and it talks about how to do that, how to think about it, and how to formulate that for yourself. And then it gives you some really nice templates of how to outline that information. And so this one is about Annie. None of these examples are actual clients. I just want to make that clear today. But you can organize it however you want. And this handout will also be available attached to this workshop. And so this one is one that you would actually see that it's giving a little bit more lens to the sensory considerations, for example. So that's something you might want to refer to in the future. If you do have a social worker attached to you at this time, that's something that they can definitely talk to you more about as you continue on this on in the next couple of months. So let me just give a second here while I get this back up. Okay. And so the other piece that I like to kind of focus on around school advocacy, and just advocacy in general for your child as they get older, is really about how do we learn to have a conversation, and the importance of how we are able to formulate our thoughts, recognize, sometimes that we have to make compromises, for example, right? And so how do we learn to have that ongoing conversation that really is to the benefit of our child, to recognize where sometimes there are those barriers and limitations, how much to push, how much to how much to step back, and again, that's something that sometimes your clinicians at KidsAbility or a social worker would be able to kind of help you have conversation about, and kind of there's a lot of frustration that comes with that give and take of that conversation. And so I just wanted to make a point on that tonight as we continue on. So I'm just going to hand it over here to Cheryl and let her kind of do her thing.
Okay, I'm just unmuting, and I just see in the chat box about the question about the All About Me tip sheet. So it will be on the website linked to this presentation. And then we're actually just doing a bit of a revamp of some of the therapeutic recreation resources, and it will be there as well. So it's not currently on there, but it will be definitely linked to this presentation. So what I wanted to do now is talk a little bit about therapeutic recreation services at KidsAbility. And so the majority of the clients that we see as recreation therapists are in the school years. This is the age where you're really looking at participating in community recreation. And I know, of course, with the COVID-19, that is a totally different situation right now. But I want to talk a little bit about what supports KidsAbility can provide with you in the area of recreation. And so what we do is to really support you in your journey to find activities or help your kids get the skills so that they can enjoy recreation and enjoy these opportunities. And we do these in a few different ways. One of the things that we do is we offer consults. And so this could be that you're new to the area, your very first time in navigating the camp system or the summer recreation. And so we do what's called a therapeutic rec consult. It can be done over the phone or in person, where we talk about what are the options out there. A big question I get from families is, what are the supports? So what does the city of Cambridge have for one-on-one? What does the city of Guelph have? What does the city of Kitchener? What does the smaller communities have? How do we find all of those other kind of supports? So when we're looking at community, what are my community recreation options? So all of those kind of things can be covered in a consult. The other key piece that we do look at is, what is your family and leisure options? And especially in this time now, where you're doing a lot of family stuff, but looking at what you guys can do as a family. Same as social workers, we look at recreation funding, and there are a lot of different options out there, some that are income-based, some that are not income-based. And so those are all done through a consult, as well as looking at some modified or adapted equipment. And I'm just looking at the chat box. Oh, that's perfect. So someone did meet with, so we do have a recreation therapist at each of our sites. And someone did meet with a TR and found it helpful. So thanks for your comment there. So yes, we do have a recreation support at each one of our sites that you can access. The other thing we do is we look at some advocacy. Heather did share our All About Me handout. and as I said, this will be up. We highly recommend that you create one of these for any recreation program that you go into. We actually say it's really good if you have babysitters or other people that are working with your child, because it gives them at a one-page snapshot of some strategies, some things that your child likes, or tips. The big key message with our advocacy is, it's great, we can look at, there's a lot of community options, but what if it's not going so well? And so in those cases, we really want you to call us to say, okay, can we do something? Can we put some strategies in place? So what we do as recreation therapists is we consult with you, we consult with the rec leaders, and we can do training, problem solving, and education. And really bottom line is, we want your kids to be successful. We want to be able to help them, set them up for success when they're looking at when we're looking at recreation participation. Okay, we're going to go to the next slide. Okay, so a couple of the other things that we offer are some clinics. The bike clinic is actually a brand new clinic that we will be launching this June. And when we're talking about bike clinics, we're actually talking about two-wheel bike clinics that the rec therapists are involved in. And so for children up to age 8, we're looking at you may have tried and your child's not having success, and so we have some tips, some parent coaching, and some handouts. We also are moving into a clinic where we can look at some adaptions, so whether it's a banana seat or different handlebars or a different backrest. So those are the kind of things we look at in our bike clinic. In our swim clinics, swimming is a really key thing that a lot of families do. And if you're new to swimming lessons, there's a lot of choices out there. And if you're, so a swim consult would look at what are your best community recreation option, or it could be on ideas of things you want to do with your child when you do some family leisure swimming, or looking at a life jacket and an adapted life jacket, those kind of things. We do also offer a few programs, and one of them is called the I Can Bike Camp that happens every summer except this one, where we bring a group in from the States, and we do a whole camp where you learn to ride a two-wheel bike. And we also do a Find Your Passion, which is looking at exposing different recreation activities to see if you can find something that you really like, or that your child really likes. A critical part of our service is education, where we're looking at workshops. Summer camp planning is a really big part. It's a stressful time for families when you're looking at summer options. And so we help families with that. We do a workshop in January and then help them through the process. We also have some step-by-step handouts for every season, as well as on our website, the Recreation Program Directory. This is replacing the KidsAbility program and activity guide that we used to do. So it will all be on our website, and a lot of this information is there now, as well as we keep building the resources that are on our website. So for biking, for swimming, for accessible playgrounds, accessible beaches, all of those kind of things. And we'll go to the next slide. So when I talked about, sorry, just one back. Yeah. When we talked about programs, you'll see our list was pretty small. What we believe at KidsAbility is that we are part of the community. And so that goes with recreation as well. And so a big part of our role is community development. So working with the cities and working with the neighborhood associations to support them in offering programs for your children, and providing the supports that they need in those programs. So we help with the program development with that. We do a lot of education and training sessions and advocacy and awareness. Our dream when we're looking at community recreation is that you have as many recreation program choices as anyone else, and that there hopefully will be something of interest to your child. And our other dream is that things are accessible. So whether it's accessible playgrounds or sensory sensitive times, like Sky Zone or regional museums, that those are all things available in the community. So in summary, is when I look at therapeutic recreation services, we're hoping to break down barriers so that your child can have a more active and inclusive lifestyle. Okay, so I go on to the focus on, I think one of the questions we often get is, what should I be doing as a parent? And so one of the things we want you to think about or focusing on with your child is discovering and developing what are core leisure interests, kind of their main interests. And so these are kind of things that as you trial and error, you find things that your kids really like, and that that will carry them often through adulthood. And so these can be a physical sport, but it can also be art or drama or musical or technology. And so you'll want to kind of figure out, what does your child like? The other thing to focus on as a family is your, what we call family and peer leisure. Going to the park, bike riding, swimming, play dates. So spending time and having fun with your kids. And the other part that we look at within recreation is your registered activities. And I know we often get a lot of questions about what's out there, is there support? So we do have a handout that's called the Frequently Asked Questions. It will be attached to this presentation. And it just kind of addresses some of those. And if you have questions about a certain thing, who you contact. So that is a handout that will be there. The other one related to this topic is what's called the Development of a Leisure Lifestyle. So it's a handout that will be, again, hooked up to this presentation, where it talks about at the different ages what you could be looking at for leisure. So your 2 to 5 age, your 5 to 7. So what typically is happening, where you can look at what kind of things you can get your kids in, what you can focus on. And so that is the end of that one, and we'll go to the next one. So this whole next part, I'm just going to start this one off. So we are into summertime, and it seems like we're into summertime now with the schools not being offered. So a big question parents often have is, what do I do to build on the skills that my child has learned? And so we're going to actually go from each of the disciplines. I'm going to start off from a recreation perspective, and then it will be carried off into the other disciplines. So as far as what we look at as recreation, or from therapeutic recreation, is summer is a great time to just be active as a family. Go to the park. And now that the parks, you can do a little bit more than just walk through them. So maybe it's grab a ball and kick it around, or do a nature walk, go for a family bike ride, go for a picnic. Play dates hopefully will be opened up soon, and as well as swimming, but games, anything that you can do to be active as a family. The other thing at the younger kids' age is to really spend time focusing and practicing your fundamental movement skills. And we call these the skills of running, balance, hopping, skipping, jumping, throwing, catching, kicking, and striking. And when we talk about striking, we're talking about your hand-eye, so your racket kind of sports, or your baseball, hitting a bat, those kind of skills. There is a handout that goes with this part of the slide that talks about what those physical literacy, we call those fundamental movement skills, we refer to as physical literacy. So there is a handout that refers to that one. And then the other thing is to participate in a summer camp or program. So obviously all spring programs are canceled. Registration is on hold right now for all summer. In a lot of municipalities, you can still register for summer camp. But this is one of the handouts that you will see. It's called activity modification, and it talks about different things you can do. So with equipment, so lighter textured balls, larger targets, it gives you some examples. And if you want to go to the next page, We talk about different things you can do, the environment, different things you can do with the rules. So it's kind of a hands-on document that will give you some really concrete ideas. And then if we can go to the next handout, that's called the TR program adaptation. This one will give you some general adaptions and then ideas for pool or sun, and then a whole bunch of different ways you can do arts or crafts. So, and different modifications for music, some ways you can make your own equipment. So it's just kind of a more resource. And this one will also be put with the presentation. So we try to give you just a few different ways that you can play and have fun with your child. The other thing, if we can go back to the presentation. I wanted to point out that on the KidsAbility website right now, in our, I believe it's in our news section, there we have a COVID-19, and there are a whole bunch of different ideas on things that you can do as a family. And so again, I would really recommend you go to our website to look at that. It's listed by categories, and it's got some really neat stuff to do. I am going to turn it over to Marie.
Okay, so I'm going to continue and I'm going to talk a little bit about some therapy ideas you can do for speech therapy, occupational therapy, and physiotherapy. You're going to have to bear with me a little bit. I'm going to put on my speech therapy and PT hats. I do work very closely with my speech therapist and physiotherapy colleagues, so hopefully I do them some justice with this. So, but if you do have any questions specifically, I encourage you to reach out to any clinicians that you might be working with. So for speech therapy, summer is a really great time to practice the communication skills in lots of different social settings. Again, the way I talked earlier, we've had a lot of time to work on those skills in an individual therapy session. The summer, school, social outings are great opportunities to now practice those skills in a natural setting. So here's a few ideas that come directly from our speech therapist of some things that you can work on over the summer to help support that communication development. So the first one they talk about is conversation books. So what a conversation book is really a book that you create that's about your own news and events. It's kind of like a scrapbook that really showcases an individual and what they like to do and what they, a little bit more about them. So what you can do is you can create a book, a scrapbook, and it will help to spark a conversation and give them an opportunity to talk about something that might be important to them. So you might include things like a ticket slip from something that you went to, whether I went to the movies or something like that. It might be a picture from the outside of a cereal box so that the child can talk about their favorite kind of cereal and what they had for breakfast that morning. When you go out on walks out into the park, like Cheryl was talking about, you might actually pick up a leaf and include that in your communication book. And it's basically what these is anything in there that can be a conversation starter that a child can show to somebody else and facilitate a little bit of that conversation and sharing about themselves. There is a handout that has been prepared to outline a little bit about these conversation books and how they can be created. So that too will be something that we will upload onto the website. The next thing that they mentioned is reading with your child. Basically, again, they emphasize literacy is so very, very important for children of all ages. So continuing to read with them is a great way to practice building communication skills. In general, adding language to all of your play interactions is also a great thing. Modeling the language and ways that you could use it is a great way to continue to build this. When they're using the examples of bubbles and cars, so just the simple activity of playing with bubbles, you can model a lot of language depending on the level that the child might be at. So I want more bubbles. Bubbles go up, pop bubbles, whatever it happens to be. The same way with playing with a toy car, you're going to talk about the car goes fast, the car goes up. Whatever you can do to add language to the play activity that you're doing, it's going to help enrich their learning and continue that work that they've been working on. Building lots of opportunities to play with friends. It's really important for us to remember that play is a child's work. That's the best way that they're going to learn and continue to develop skills, giving them lots of opportunities. Again, we realize that it's a little bit tricky right now with the current situation with social isolating, but hopefully as that clears up, we're going to build more opportunities to engage with friends and develop those opportunities. Finally, they speak about AAC. So any child who does have a communication device or use any form of alternative communication, this is another thing, is giving opportunities for using that, making sure that they're always readily available to a child, because that is their words, and helping, again, modeling it, giving a chance to use that. Again, I would encourage you to connect with your therapist about this. Your clinician will be able to give you some good ideas about when and how you might be able to use that throughout the summer months. Okay, next. Next is occupational therapy, one I feel a little more comfortable with. So again, the summer is a great time to practice on all the great skills that you've been learning throughout the year and practicing them in the real world. One of the areas that occupational therapists really trying to focus on is the fine motor skills. I suspect that actually this is something that a lot of people are already embarking on and figuring out how to do them at home as you do the homeschooling. But really, I encourage families to start kind of thinking outside the box and think of fun and creative ways that you can work on this. So fine motor skills doesn't have to be completed just sitting at a desk with a paper and a pencil. It can be done through a lot of play activities, fun activities, and functional activities throughout the day. We often talk about multisensory teaching and ways of learning and exploring. So we can think about, I can practice holding a pencil and writing letters. I can do all that using sidewalk chalk or tracing letters in sand. I can get paintbrushes and dip it in water and paint on the fence. There's lots of opportunities to do that in the summer, and I encourage you to explore that. What we have done as therapists is we've created something called it's like a therapy calendar for the summer, and that's going to be shown on the last slide, and you will again have access to that as well. And what that does is it's giving a few examples of some of these fun and creative ways that you can practice some of these skills. The other thing we have is I will also be including a handout in the website that is talking about fun outdoor activities that can be done. The next section that we might talk about is self-care skills. So again, the summer is a nice opportunity to work on some of those things. Maybe you might have the opportunity to take a little bit extra time to practice that. When you're not in the hustle and bustle of every day, you might be able to take some time and allow and encourage a little bit more independence. I often like the summer because we have less clothing, so it's a little bit less frustrating when we're trying to develop some of those skills of independence with dressing and whatnot. It's a good opportunity to practice things like lunch containers. Think about what are we going to use at school in the fall? So if we go out on a picnic, maybe we're going to bring our lunch bag and we're going to use those containers that we might be using in this so that we can practice and make sure that we're as independent as possible when the school year does start. Play skills. As I mentioned, when it came down to communication, play is one of the most important jobs for children. So again, giving lots of opportunities for play, exploring and learning, promoting those social interactions, and in general, a lot of our learning happens through play. Finally, I have a section there about self-regulation and sensory processing. So when I'm talking about those areas, I'm really talking about the ability to manage stressors and manage the sensory input that's happening around you. So a lot of children have difficulty with this. So the summer is a great time to kind of practice and tease that out and create a bit of a toolkit of how we can manage those things. So consider some of the things that you might have learned within your therapy sessions with an occupational therapy and see how we can implement that at home, out in the community, outside spaces, at the park, wherever you happen to be, and practice those things. Sorry. So again, if you're looking at some of the strategies that might be really helpful over the summer, is despite the changes, and I know again, now we have some very significant changes given the current situation with COVID-19, but as much as possible, creating a certain amount of routine for our children so that they do know what to expect and there's some predictability to their day. That helps manage a little bit better. Maybe it's introducing visuals here and there and using those things, using the first then language and things that you may have used to support a child as they transition and experience new things. Sensory breaks throughout the day. is a great thing to also remember that we keep doing. So we need lots of opportunities for children to be active, but also opportunities to keep calm and regulated. So ideally we want to create a situation where we can have a nice balance of those things throughout the day so that we can be in their optimal state. The more we practice that, the more it'll be ingrained in us, and the more prepared as a parent you will be to share that information with school come the September. Those are things that can be included in that All About Me page as to these are tools that I know works and we have been using them. Really the biggest highlight that I want to say there is just remember to keep it fun. Therapy doesn't need to feel like extra work. As much as possible, try and incorporate into the everyday activities that you're doing. Just think about it a little bit differently, but you'll see a lot of those everyday activities really can work to develop the skills that you're already working on. Okay, the next is physiotherapy. So physiotherapy is also a great time in the summer to consolidate the gross motor skills. One thing that you could do throughout the summer is try and go to the school playground. This is an opportunity when it's a little bit quieter. Ideally, it's quieter right now, and you can explore it and learn the layout of the school playground. You can practice navigating playground. You can navigate on different terrains, making sure we can balance and have a good understanding of how we can move throughout that space. In the summer is a great opportunity, like Cheryl was talking about, biking and hiking are nice opportunities to continue to build those gross motor skills. Our physiotherapist also included here as a job that you could do to help consolidate the gross motor skills. And what she meant by that is that maybe if you're at the park or you're watching somebody in another soccer game or something, it maybe is a younger sibling who is there, who is accompanying you while someone else is playing. Instead of just sitting down and spectating, you might take that opportunity to maybe go for a little walk or bring a soccer ball of your own with you and kick that ball back and forth. Look for those natural opportunities throughout the day that you can practice those gross motor skills and really consolidate the learning that you've done. One thing our physiotherapists really like to emphasize is the importance of having strong and supportive footwear. Really, ideally, strong supportive sandals, sports sandals, or runners are ideal. We want to have that firm support so that we can be as most stable as we possibly can. Crocs are a lovely footwear, but really it's only for the water and for the beach. When it comes to really your performance from a gross motor perspective and running, it's really important to look at the more structured footwear. And as I said earlier, right there is the point that you can see the therapy calendar for fun ways to carry over all of these things that you've been working on throughout the school year. So it is on the next slide. It's pretty tiny here, but we will be sharing this one again on the website. So these ideas for summer is a combination of all of the different recommendations from all of the different disciplines within KidsAbility. There's lots of ideas to facilitate fine motor skill development, gross motor skill development, social play skills. All of those things are included on here. We set it up this way. There's no dates attached to it, particularly so that people don't feel the need that we have to do everything. This is laid out in this way that it gives you a few ideas of things that you can do and incorporate into your daily activities to help reinforce some of the learning and the therapy skills that have already been built. Okay? And again, if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out or speak to any clinician who you may be attached to still at this time. Okay, and I think next Heather is up.
So now I'm navigating all of these things, so I'm trying to get that all sorted. Here we go. So I think that's the majority of the information that we were going to share today. And so I just wanted to take a moment again to check in. And just kind of take that self-reflective time to kind of think about how you're feeling now. So I'm just going to say it as I started. So you're currently navigating school year services for your child, and what does this mean for you? So on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is I feel confident, I feel great about this change, and 1 is the opposite. How are you feeling in this moment about accessing services at KidsAbility, services at school, services in the community. And again, think about some words to describe your feelings in this moment. It might be the same as it was when we started. It might be different. That's okay. And also, again, to think about what would it take to kind of move one higher. And so one of the things I've noticed as we've had this discussion is there's some questions about when are we going to get these handouts. And so as we do have your emails from this, I'm assuming that we'll try to get that to you as soon as possible so that you have that. And our hope would be is that it is up on the website sooner rather than later. But this is our moment just to think about how we're feeling. So I'll give you a moment just to kind of reflect on that a little bit more, and feel free to write any thoughts or feelings in the chat if you're wanting to do so. Okay. If you're watching this on the website, you can pause now too to kind of give yourself a moment. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And as I said, please reach out to us either through intake or through any attached clinicians.
Yes, thank you everyone for joining us tonight.